Welcome to Skin Depth Convo. I'm Anna Kagarakis. We're talking about the buzz surrounding LED light therapy and its potential to revolutionize your skincare routine. Now, in just a bit, we'll be joined by Richard Maher from LightStim, who will be shedding light on the remarkable benefits for your skin. But first, I want to welcome in our expert host, part of the founders of Lira Clinical, Metaxia, Delikas, and Francine Kagarakis. How you ladies doing today?
Great, Anna. It's great to be back again and excited to talk to Richard.
I'm very excited to talk to Richard. I think this is a huge topic right now. We're seeing it all over social media. But before we get into LED light therapy, I also want to bring up a story about a different light, because summer is here and we have a red alert when it comes to sun safety and how it's actually affecting Gen Z, because they are the ones that are getting burned. Now, CEW, who actually puts out some wonderful articles, they shared the findings from a new survey done by the American Academy of Dermatology, saying that Gen Z, they have misbeliefs around sun protection and the lack of awareness when it comes to long-term health effects of UV damage. We have more information than ever. You know, all of us are wearing more hats, wearing more UV protecting clothing and everything, trying to protect ourselves from the UV rays and sun damage, and really knowing the importance of SPF. Gen Z is still soaking up the sun. Now, a 2024 American Academy of Dermatology survey talked to over 1,000 U.S. adults, and it revealed a startling trend that more than half of Gen Z adults between the ages of 18 to 26 reported getting sunburns in 2023. That's significantly higher than the national average of just 36. Even more alarming, more than half, 52% of Gen Z adults were unaware of the serious risks of sunburns, and it's led to them having more risky habits, with 37% of Gen Z admitting to using sunscreen only when they were pressured by others. First off, when you first hear that, what do you both think about the fact they're unaware?
Well, you're bringing up about light source, and it's really cool because it's fitting for us to say about the woods lamp or the black light or the scanners that could actually visually see what we can't see with a naked eye. And I have to tell you, it's surprising what is down there and what accumulative of exposure to the sun causes so that you can't see it. But the light source also is a positive to see where the damage and where the inflammation is down deep, and it eventually is going to bleed up to the surface. And SPF, you might think you don't have to, but it is an accumulation of sun exposure that will cause a melanocyte to truly be established and then work itself up in the later years.
Well, I agree with that 100%. The other thing we have to remember is you are finding out that the medical world is talking about skin cancer. And we do have to remember skin cancer is an issue that we have to remind people. The sun is the largest free radical, and we are exposed to it daily. And having protection is very, very important, especially for people who are getting skin correction. What I'm concerned about is this generation has that same idea, and they go in and they start using glycolics or retinols. They're even doing more damage. So it's important for them to understand preventative is important, number one, and skin cancer is the reason why we wear sunscreen. And we do have to remind people that we have to be aware of the sun rays, as Metaxia says, the light source. But how far do these rays go? If you're out in the sun for a little amount of time with sunscreen, it's probably not going to hurt you, but sunscreen is what you need. But going out there and using no sunscreen, what is the reason? And I'm very concerned about maybe they're hearing certain things about chemical sunscreen and how mineral sunscreen is different than chemical sunscreen. What's important to remind them? It's the UV rays that we're trying to protect everybody from.
Yeah, and now here's another thing that the survey actually found too, that 28% of Gen Zers responded saying that getting a tan was more important to them than preventing skin cancer. To me, that sounded like it's one of those, you know, you feel like you're indestructible in your youth and you don't think about the future ahead. The study also tested participants' understanding of sun protection, common myths, also the risks of the sun exposure. Now, over half of Americans usually score an A or B grade for their sun protection knowledge, but Gen Z scores actually dropped dramatically, with 1/3, about 32% of that generation's adults receiving a failing grade of a D or an F. Now, the question that we're seeing here also is like, why? Why is this happening? And one thing that experts are saying, social media has been such a huge culprit, saying that that's where a lot of this generation is unfortunately favoring their news source because there's a misinformation on there. You have things like, example, Kristen Cavallari, who is a reality TV star. She has a podcast with over 11 million followers on her social media. She said, quote, "I don't wear sunscreen. Talk to me about the health benefits of the sun and maybe why we shouldn't wear sunscreen." She brought on a guest who was a practitioner but did not have an MD to talk about the topic. But when you hear about all of these, people with huge influence talking about this, like, I don't wear sunscreen. You have all these young people who are going to these influencers saying they said they shouldn't wear it, so I shouldn't either. I think that's dangerous.
Well, I think we spend a lot of time educating our professionals to give that information out, because if they're only going to the social media to get that information, that's number one wrong, because it's not 100% truthful. But education as far as preventative, Francine mentioned earlier, preventative is the key. We didn't apply sunscreen on you guys as, our children, but we were finding that you are applying sunscreen to your kids. So there is a generation shift. It's sad that the influencers are having that much of an influence on this age group, but prevention, correction, maintenance is all very key to health and wellness of the skin. And like Francine said, skin cancer is rising every year, and it's a shame. And I'm hoping people are listening to the podcast to realize that SPF is not just a brand, it's the whole industry. Sunscreen is crucial and the number one product you should buy when you go to your specialist.
I agree, though. When you're young, you don't think about it. And yes, we do like that glow. And when I was young, I would try to sit out there and try to put baby oil on and try to look even better. I love that golden color. I do. But I get to the point where you have to use tanning products. And the reason for that is because we're trying very hard to make sure that we do protect ourselves from the free radical damage. And I think it comes back down to that. Yes, the sun has some benefits. We're not saying it doesn't, but you still need to protect yourself. We don't want people going out there in the middle of the afternoon when the rays are really very, very damaging. There's certain times, I think we used to talk about this, Metaxia and I were doing classes, go out in the morning, get a nice little walk, wear your sunscreen. It's fine, it feels good, but to sit out there and bake to get that color, it is very, very damaging to the skin. We see it 40 and up, or 30 and up, actually. Photo damage. You see the damage that what has accumulated, and now this is part of the correction that we have to actually do in the clinic. But the people who have taken care of their skin younger, and especially in Europe, they used to take care of the skin a lot more than they did here in the United States. Usually they don't have to correct as much. So this is where it becomes important to remind people, we don't want you to stay completely out of the sun. We want you to protect yourself. We want you to make sure to protect yourself from free radical damage and skin cancer. Those are the two big things that we're concerned about.
It's funny, I'm going to give you a little story. We say this in our classes. You take a chicken, a raw chicken, and you feel the skin of the chicken. It's moist, it's pliable, it moves, it doesn't crack. You put it in the oven, and what happens that skin becomes very thin, to the point that it's thin and it doesn't have the movement and it cracks. And it causes the skin to lose the function of the protection. The sun does actually limit the epidermis from its proper function. It thins it out. It causes it to have, like you said, that skin cancer possibilities. It causes the skin not to have the dryness, not to age it. So you're actually frying your skin if you're not putting the SPF. And it's funny when we talk about this association, and it makes sense. The skin of, raw chicken, you feel that plumpness, that movement. We say that in some of our classes, and it kind of hits home because we really want to keep that movement and the skin as healthy and plump as possible.
My children did wear sunscreen. And when Anna was playing tennis, I always told her to reapply. Oh, yes, we did. But the difference is our children started our grandkids sooner. I think that is one of the biggest differences, because your kids wore sunscreen too. And when they went to the pool, they wore sunscreen. When you played tennis, you wore sunscreen. The difference is when they went out to play or when they did not apply sunscreen earlier in their life. Where today I see my grandkids do wear sunscreen.
Yeah.
I disagree with her. I disagree with her because we weren't. I totally disagree with you because we sprayed some sunscreen or we applied some sunscreen, but the urgency of wearing it on a daily basis was not there. We bought some. A lot of it was there for a year. You buy a large bunch of it and kept it there.
My kids never wore spray on sunscreen.
But it was, but it wasn't this mandatory thing that you wear on a daily basis. It's essential for us to be healthy. I think for me, maybe for you, but I don't remember you applying SPF on your kids on a regular basis.
No, in high school. I think finally in high school they did. Well, Anna, you're here.
Hold on. I'll tell you.
Wait.
I'll be honest. Hold on.
We have her here.
I'll tell you the honest truth. You're half right. Because yes, I wore it, but guess what? I would get like SPF 4, SPF 8 because I wanted color. So that's why I understand where this generation feels like, okay, we want to get color. I understand where they're coming from. I get that. We all go through that point in our lives where we're feeling indestructible and where we feel like, oh, it's okay. It's going to be fine. I put some SPF on. I am protecting my skin. No, it's not enough. That's not enough. You need at least a 30. I know that now as an adult at 40 years old. And obviously when you're 18, early 20s, you have a different mindset than when you do, and you realize it later on. The difference now is the misinformation. To me, that's the point that gets me very upset, where it's like, you don't need it. To me, that's the problem. That is the issue. That is the danger that is out there right now on social media, where you're saying, oh, it's a myth to wear sunscreen. You don't need sunscreen. No, you need it. You need to be aware. If you make the choice, what you want to do with your life, that's fine. But here's all the information. But let's give the correct information to this generation instead of putting out a false information.
And something that we have to remind everyone, our mother, your grandmother, who's very dark, she's darker than all of us. Okay. She goes out and gardens. So she has her own melanin protection because she does get dark. So she has her own melanin protecting her. She had a squamous cell on her nose. So we do have to remind people skin cancer is something we have to be aware of. And you're right. When you're young, you think nothing's going to happen to you and the world's yours. What's the big deal? That's not the case. And you never got that sunscreen from me for a 2 and a 4.
I bought it for myself. I bought
That
it 4
would
to 8.
never come from me.
I would sit out with my friends at the pool because I wanted my base tan.
That wasn't me.
That was me. I wanted my base tan for the summer so I could be nice and golden, not realizing that I was burning my skin. And it is very dangerous. And look, I will say I have some age spots. I have spots. Because of that, I do have some spots that are obviously from that point of my life. It does
And
show
was
up
I
later.
working at that time? Was I working or something? I
Probably,
wasn't
I'm sure
home.
you were.
What was happening? Okay. How did you wear this low SPF?
Anna,
Because
you
I
made
went
it
and bought it
right.
myself.
Your mother was half right, half
right.
wrong. So half right, half wrong. Okay?
She bought me the right one, but I wanted my tan.
In
That's
high
what I
school.
wanted. Exactly.
In high school, I remember we used to go places, and you didn't have the sunscreen with you at the age of 5, 6, 7, 10. No.
I get very mad at myself when I forget to put it on my kids. I get
Would
very
you stop
mad at
telling
myself.
on me?
I'm not telling
But you do.
You gave
My
me the
sister
right
over
one.
here.
I'm the one
I
who
will
went and got
tell
the
on
wrong
you.
one.
Don't even worry about it. I will tell on you.
All I remember is I see both my daughters with my grandsons, and they make sure they have sunscreen with them all the time. And yes, if they run out of Lira sunscreen, I just go get a sunscreen at this point. Get something. Don't leave yourself that way because of the free radical damage. And my children have nice color and everything, but it's, again, they're protected. They're reapplying. We do what we can to protect.
Yes.
I can't argue that. I can't argue that. I just know that we've learned a lot, and I'm hoping these podcasts will help people understand that the sooner the better, and that you could all learn to get better.
And be like my kids, they ask forgiveness instead of permission.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're
My
talking
children,
about.
oh yes.
I don't know what you're talking about. Well, we're going to go from the harmful light, but now we're going to go to a healing light with LED light therapy, because there are wonderful benefits to LED light therapy and what it can do to your skin, including healing. So we're going to talk to Richard right after this word from Lira Clinical.
This podcast is brought to you by Lira Clinical and the award-winning Mystique Illuminating Beauty Oil. Mystique Beauty Oil's amazing skin-friendly hydration delivers potent antioxidants and anti-inflammatories with Lira Clinical's exclusive Mass Tech brightening technology. This luxury oil blend is infused with vitamin C for a clean, dry finish on the skin. Use by itself or add to your favorite hydrator. Beauty oil delivers your glow and go look. Contact your local Lira retailer for additional information at liraclinical.com.
Welcome back to Skin Depth Convo. Now, today we're exploring the innovative world of LED light therapy and how it can transform your skin. So joining us today is a special guest, Richard Maher from LightStim. Now, Richard is here to share his expertise on LED light therapy, how it works, and the incredible benefits it can offer your skin. Whether you're looking to reduce wrinkles, combat acne, or maybe just enhance your overall complexion, LED light therapy may be that game changer. And to illuminate us on that subject, again, we have Richard here, who is the Communications Director and National Educator for LightStim. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, and enlightened. I see what you did there.
We have to illuminate us all today. So excited. I got to share something fun with you, though. So, how we kind of came up with deciding to talk about this subject, my neighbor had called me one day saying, "Hey, I have a package coming to my door. It's an LED mask." So she goes, "Can you get it for me? Because I'm not home." I'm like, "Sure, no problem." And the more and more I thought about it, I'm like, I keep seeing this all over social media. I keep thinking about it. And I asked Francine, like, what do you think of this? And it was just kind of funny how I've been hearing it. And I've just been seeing like the moms at my school talking about this LED mask. And can you explain what LED light therapy is for people who may have never heard of it before?
Absolutely. I mean, at its base, what we are doing is light therapy. This has been used for thousands of years. It was originally heliotherapy with the sun, where they were using it in Egypt and ancient China in order to treat psoriatic conditions like psoriasis or psoriatic arthritis. Of course, with the sun, you're not only getting beneficial wavelengths of light, but you're also getting ones that might be carcinogenic and mutagenic. And so studies were done in the 90s, contracted out by NASA to Harry T. Whalen of the Marshall Space Center, looking at using LED as a light source to do light therapy and to create change within the skin and body. It was also being done for plant growth. It's pretty obvious why that would be important to NASA as well. But there were a lot of ways in which we found that light can create change within the body when used correctly. Everything from killing bacteria, reducing redness and inflammation, increasing circulation. And much like photosynthesis in plants, we are even creating energy on the cellular level in order to have the body be able to do what it did naturally when we were younger and be able to take care of itself, really.
It's funny. We were introduced about 20 years ago to a company that was coming up with a LED machine. It was the biggest tabletop I've ever seen. Probably weighed about 30 pounds. It had these big panels, and it was very costly to have it, but it was such a big device. And it's funny how it's changed and the industry has changed. And I'd like to have your input in the last maybe 15 years. What's changed? Because it's really has gotten more of a staple in our aesthetic industry right now.
I think that a lot of things have changed, actually. There's no one thing that brought it to where it is today, but quite a few things where put all together, it's really created it to where it is today. The first is that there was a lot of research done in the beginning, and from those studies that NASA contracted out, and with the success of those in wound healing and helping with epithelial growth and helping in so many different facets, it then went into the medical community, and then from the medical community into beauty. Even as far back as I would say 2010, 2011, we're run by a husband and wife company, Joni and Steve Marchese. And back then they were actually putting our handhelds onto QVC and getting a lot of public education on them. And it's really interesting how just getting the public to start to understand what this is, what it's doing, and getting it into their hands in a way that's easy to use really brought a lot of attention to it back in those days. We're finding that LEDs are being created more consistently to a medical grade level, because what's actually creating the light are the materials that the LEDs are made out of. So if they're very refined materials, it can create very specific wavelengths or colors of light. And it's not a process that's necessarily 100% easy. You can get materials that you don't want in there that might make it give a little bit of colors outside of that realm that aren't going to be able to do it. You may think of something like a Philips Hue light where it changes colors. That means that there's less of every material. Each one is going to be less bright than something that you may want at a medical level. And so we've really come into this Renaissance period where it has become such public knowledge and there is such demand for it that we are also seeing it more consistently being created at this high level that we need it to be at. And that's why we're seeing so much more success with it. But unfortunately, also a lot of knockoff devices, they may lessen people's opinion of it as well. I used to work for Steiner Education way back in the day and in another life. And I remember not believing in LED back then because the school had bought some really inexpensive LED handhelds that I think could have just been Christmas tree lights behind a little piece of glass. And I was like, how is this going to be doing anything? And so it's just very interesting seeing when it's done correctly, the type of profound change that it actually can cause.
You know, Richard, it's great that you're here today. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. But when Anna first went and got the mask, what she said at that point is, I told her, I have a mask for you. Go ahead, put it on. And she was surprised I even had this mask because she's never seen it because I quietly do it once in a while at night. And she had no idea that I was using it. How can people understand the benefits? Because I gave it to Anna to use and she was using all the different lights. And I told her, no, there's a reason for each of these lights. And can you explain the differences of the lights and the lengths and the colors?
Sure. At least as far as what we're looking at in the realm of how we're using LED light therapy, really you'll hear numbers like 415 nanometer blue, 465 nanometer blue, 630 nanometer red. Really, what you are thinking of this as, or an easy example is this is kind of the Pantone of light therapy or energy. We're telling you the exact color that it is. So if I'm talking to other professionals, like most of you probably listening, I would say wavelength. If I'm talking to my client in a treatment room, I would say color. It's a much more easily digestible term. As we go up in that number, we're actually kind of going backwards on a rainbow. So we're starting with violet and ultraviolet as the numbers are lower. And as that wavelength number goes up, we're going, through violet to blue, blue to green, green to yellow, and backwards all the way. And it's really easy to kind of think of this as well, because when we think of the name UV, it's ultraviolet. That means it's above violet. When we think of infrared, that's below red. These are actually right outside the visible spectrum. So if you're using any lights in these ranges, they're also invisible to the naked eye. As that number gets bigger, it tends to also mean that it's going deeper and it's less energy filled. And so why UV is so damaging is it's this very high energy that's just sucker punching the top layers of your skin over and over, causing electrons to bounce, which can cause mutations and other issues that can lead to cancer. Once we start to get into the visible range, we're working naturally with the body, especially using a diffuse light like LED. And we're actually reacting to light reactive particles within the skin. So there are two things you really want to think about. Is there something at that level that reacts to this wavelength or color of light? Is it going deep enough to be able to work with what we want to work with? So blue light is very superficial. We're actually working with a light reactive particle called porphyrins, absorbs the blue light, has a very simple chemical reaction that causes these porphyrins to release a molecule of oxygen. And this is working in and around the sebum, where a lot of those porphyrins congregate in areas where acne can proliferate. Acne doesn't do well with oxygen, so it's just a very simple way in order to use a very simple chemical reaction of it absorbing that light to basically have the acne bacteria kill itself. As we're getting into ambers, reds, and infrareds, we're going deeper and deeper into tissue, sometimes down into muscles and joints. We actually do have devices that are FDA cleared for pain relief as well. And as you're going deeper, we're working with a lot more living tissue and systems, doing things like, not to get too in depth, but down-regulating pro-inflammatory cell signalers like cytokines. We're increasing circulation, getting more blood flow going, helping with cellular energy production. For example, in that dermis, we have a lot of fibroblasts. Those are the cells that create your collagen and elastin. And so we're being able to target very specific locations to have the cells communicate better with each other, do what they're supposed to, work with processes that tend to slow down as we age. And honestly, we go over this for hours in our own certification, so we can really get in depth, but I know we don't have that time here today. But really, all we're trying to do is use light, this diffuse, gentle light, in order to bathe the cells and give them the energy in order to work with it, with the parts of it that are light receptive, and create these changes.
What's the time period to be able to see results for in-clinic treatments versus home care?
It's really funny. I'll be completely honest right here. Our home care devices are the same strength and efficacy as our treatment room devices, and that tends to be the case more often than not with most LED companies because it is such a gentle, non-invasive treatment. There are no contraindications. It's something where I'm so grateful, are partners with organizations like Oncology Spa Solutions, because LED is really one of the only electrical modalities besides something like a Lucas sprayer that you can use on this vulnerable clientele or in post-cancer care. So with it being something that's that non-invasive, it would be really remiss of us to not offer those same strengths and efficacy at home as you would in the treatment room. And it's not so much time frame, it's which of those benefits that you want to see, because there are immediate benefits and there are going to be cumulative benefits as well. And each client has different things that they're working or dealing with as well. For example, using our acne light, I get what I lovingly refer to as hotel acne. I'm not an acneic person in general, but like just traveling like I was at a show, I don't know if it's recycled air, the stress, the air travel, what have you, but my acne is very extrinsically based. It's based on things outside of my body. So I can use our acne light once, and by the next morning, whatever stress blemish I have is dealt with. Someone is seeing a more hormonal issue, that might be something where it'll take multiple times per week for a few weeks in order to see that start to see some benefit there. With anti-aging devices, we do see an immediate wrinkle reduction right away. And we've done skin analysis scans like the Vizia skin scanner in order to show that. But this is a very temporary benefit. Some say 6 to 8 hours. Some say they've seen it for 24 hours. Good for them. I'm more in the 6 to 8 range, but that might be the increase of circulation. It could be other neurotransmitters that we are working with. It could be some nitric oxide release or bioavailability that people do see with LED, but makes it good for pre-makeup as primer for your primer or just for things looking well. But for that collagen to build, it is happening from that first step, but it's going to take a long time to work from the base up, especially if the wrinkles are already there. We were actually the first to get FDA cleared for the full face rather than just around the eyes. And so in our clinical trials, it's supposed to be a 12-week trial, but at 8 weeks, the FDA contacted the third party doing our clinical trial and said, we've seen what we need to see. 100% of people found significant results using it, the at-home handheld, so the smaller device, 5 times a week for that 6 to 8 weeks. We continued the study because we wanted to know that it was still going to see more benefit past that time, so we finished it up. But in the treatment room, even though that's where the clearance lied, we are seeing a lot of people, maybe if they're using it as a monotherapy, it's doing a series twice a week for that same amount of time and seeing results. I would argue that we have a lot of tools in our tool belt, so I'd rather see it combined with other services, but it's always good to know it's working on its own.
Okay. I have a question because I've been told that to use the light therapy or the LED light therapy, you need to have a clean canvas, or is in combination something that we should be concerned about? What is the right way to use light therapy after doing a service, a facial or a peel? What is the proper way that you suggest?
I say yes. I'm a yes to all. It can be used on bare skin. It is something that can be used with product. What I will make a caveat here and say that I also respect other product manufacturers. And if they tell you not to use it with product, there could be multiple reasons. They could be using a light that isn't as bright. They could be doing something where not all the lights are focused towards the skin. For example, a lot of times if you can see that square microchip, the light isn't just going towards the skin. It could be going out sideways. It could be going diagonally. It might not just be going straight forward. So there may be cases where it's not a potent enough source to get through product. It could be 8-in-1 devices are all the rage right now. It could be something combined with microcurrent or combined with an extreme heat where you don't want to, hold it in place or use it with certain products. So I always say follow manufacturer's directions, but with us, we have worked on protocols with quite a few companies where we are being used with serums or clear masks. Clear because we want that light to be able to go through the product. We do also add a light warmth into our devices, and there will also be more warmth from within because of things like an increase of circulation. And so we usually recommend not to use it with anything drying, irritating, or that might be sensitive to light or warm. So I wouldn't necessarily use this with the retinol, especially since that light does promote some product penetration. I know a lot of times here in the US, we think more is better, deeper is better.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's not always the case. So we a lot of times do recommend it with your hydrators like hyaluronic acid, stem cells, both plant and human media based. We've seen a lot of it, gentle botanicals, and it's worked extremely well. At least my personal argument to it being able to go through product that absorbs into the skin or that it's clear is that it's able to go through your acid mantle. It's able to go through those lipids that are already in your skin, and we are not, hopefully, cleansing those off every time that we're doing a deep cleanse. And so if it's able to get through these oils and lipids that are naturally a part of your body to get into deeper tissue, to that dermis or lower, I do not see how a serum would be the end all be all stop of it being able to go where it needs to go.
I have a question about the eye guard. I remember getting a treatment in clinic, and you have the eye guard and you see red. And
Yes.
the first thing, I was a little alarmed a little bit in the beginning. Why do you wear an eye guard in clinic, but you don't wear an eye guard at home if it has the same type of strength?
Good question. So the light wasn't not tested for use over the eyes. Lightstim wasn't. With our home devices, they are used directly touching the skin. So you have extreme control over where it's at. Even the goggles that we provide with the handheld lights, they do say optional on them. But since those larger devices cover the full face, it's something where the goggles are really there to provide comfort more than safety. But also, I would say it's a big liability thing too. One, it is a medical device and it wasn't tested for use over the eyes. You use them for the sake of it being a medical device and following proper instructions. But two, that is an extremely bright light that is usually applied near the very end of a service, right before they get off a table. So as far as it goes, it's really going to be important for you to be able to give that client a great experience and just make sure that they're going to get off that table feeling comfortable. Before we go on, I want to stress that I am not saying our lights are helping with this at all. I am not saying that this is something that Lightstim ever intends to really go into. But there are a lot of studies out there using red and infrared light, and they're using it in order to either slow down or the degradation or help with issues like diabetic retinopathy and neuropathy, macular degeneration, these different eye disorders. Please do not try to use our lights for that purpose. We don't prescribe or treat, and that's not what they're intended for. But it really does give me some feeling of safety knowing that these lights are actually being used in certain cases in order to help eyes, to be able to feel confident that, yes, if you do see it out of those side of those goggles, it's not going to cause harm, especially in this very controlled environment that we're in for very short periods of time.
I have to say you bring up a very good point, which I hope the listeners are listening to. These light sources vary from all over. You could get something that from Amazon or whatever, you could get these things mailed to you, but the light source has to be controlled and calculated like you guys are doing as a professional device, because you could have heat, not heat, you could have different light sources, numbers, and they vary. So really using a light source that has the safeties that you've put in place is very, very important for everyone to know. It's not just something that you should just grab without the safety and without the considerations of the manufacturers, which you have done as a manufacturer, which we applaud to you for that. You know, you've done your homework. So it's important for them to know that.
So they shouldn't sleep with it on. So this is the question what we're going to ask. So when you're putting it on, I noticed Anna was walking around and enjoying it, and how long are you going to wear it? And so
I think it's like 10 minutes, right? Yeah, how long? Is that about right?
Light loses its power exponentially the further away it is from the source. So with our handhelds, when they're touching the skin, if we're treating the skin rather than something like pain where you're deeper, there's more to diffuse the light, on average treatment is 3 minutes per area, static or not moving in that location, and then you move on to the next. With our larger devices that go from a 1/4 inch to 2 inches away from the skin, that can change treatment time just in that little frame to somewhere between 12 and 20 minutes. So if you go even further than that, it could take hours. So it's one of those
Wow.
things where things like how strong that light source is, how close it is to the source, how refined it is as well. We have a multi-wave technology where we multitask. So all of our lights use somewhere between 2 and 4 different wavelengths at the same time. Our acne uses both blue and red because not only do we want to kill bacteria, but we want to reduce redness, get some circulation going, because all that is part of the full acne story. And so we have a variety of specifications, everything from how we mount the lights, the type of mounting that we do, the way that we angle the lights so that they're getting to where they need to within the skin without them interfering with each other. So even just in this case, it's once again to your point that not all LED is created equal, and it can take so many different features to do something right, especially if you're doing something different. So I've seen some LED devices take 30 minutes upwards for their treatment time. And so it really can vary device to device. Also, I've seen devices that aren't FDA cleared at all and just make up their own time.
One of the things I kind of want to follow up, you're talking about how people can find all these different devices online, but they don't know whether it's FDA approved or not. But let's talk about LightStem. So what is it that makes your devices different than compared to everything else on the market?
So one of the things is what you just talked about, which is that we do make and manufacture everything ourselves in Orange County, California. It is an ISO 13485 or 13085. I'm so sorry. The number just disappeared out of my head as we were talking. So don't quote me on that at home. But it is an ISO facility that is made and intended to manufacture class 2 over-the-counter medical devices. So we make everything ourselves, which also does help with quality control. We've been around since 2001 with the current owners, Joni and Steve, coming into this business in around 2008. So it's been well over 20 plus years that we've been creating these devices. In that time, we have been able to have a record of less than 0.5% of lights returned in need of repair, partly because we do all that manufacturing ourselves. And we are able to offer that quality, which also helps us develop new devices. I mean, we started out with one handheld for anti-aging back in the day, and that became handhelds for anti-aging, acne, and pain. That became pro panels that cover the full face. It became full beds, being the first FDA cleared full body unit on the market back in 2016. And then most recently, we developed a device named Delikas, which is in between our panels and our home devices, and is kind of like a nice jack of all trades for a facial. It's actually what's on the back of all newer hydrofacial devices from the past 2 years as well. So they're using our LEDs for all of their newer systems. We are also a family company. As much as we are the biggest manufacturer professionally and retail, it's one of those things where we try to keep everything extremely personal. It's a husband and wife run company. One of their sons is our VP of manufacturing. The other one is over all of our creative, where we keep all of our creative in-house. We do our own photo shoots. We get lifestyle and product photos and make all these available, especially in a digital world. That's extremely important. It's something where you're going to be getting something quality, but you're also going to be getting that personal touch as a part of it as well. And on top of that, we have done our own research. We've kept the receipts. We've done third-party research where we have things like being the first FDA cleared full face device to prove that what we're doing is effective. We're not just piggybacking on somebody else's FDA clearance and saying, see, we're the same, because we are doing things differently. So we needed to be able to show that what we're doing is effective and done in a proper way. I mean, I could go on, but it's just one of those things where, like your company, education is extremely important to us as well. And so are the people that we partner with and the people we have these conversations with. You invest in us, we invest in you. We have online certifications. We create shorter material in case you have front desk people who just need to know an elevator pitch of exactly what it is. We're constantly at the shows making sure that people are able to know the ABCs of LED. And we want to make sure that when we're creating protocols outside of just our own company, since we are are extremely product neutral, that it's with companies that are willing to test our lights with their devices, since it is a different LED, and making sure that it is working as intended with their products. So it's all the way around something where we just want to make sure that we live up to our own standards and live up to the standards for the aesthetic industry.
I was going to say, we see that there are definitely some anti-aging and wrinkles, but are there other benefits? What are some of the other benefits that you've seen that other people talk about with LED light therapy?
So one of the number one things I actually see in the treatment room with it being used is it being combined with other more aggressive services in order to help with the downtime and efficacy of those procedures. We are combined with microdermabrasion, microneedling, enzyme treatments. The list goes on, waxing, because since we're working on inflammation cascades, we're increasing circulation, we're helping with cellular energy. It's something where we're consistently seeing we're helping the downtime of a lot of these services as well as the efficacy. We actually did a half-face study with a Dr. Sasaki in Glendale, California, where he was using us post facelift and microneedling, and found that in both cases, in multiple patients, we were helping with both downtime and efficacy and longevity of these procedures as well. And that is a white paper that we do offer people. So if they are interested, they can get a hold of us and we can definitely share that information. But this goes all the way around. What I really like about LED is that since it is so non-invasive and light therapy has such a history, it really kind of fits in with all treatment room philosophies. We've seen it be more allopathic and medical. We've seen it be used in naturopathy. We've seen it being used in traditional Chinese medicine, which comes into the skincare realm in things like gua sha, cupping, etc. But there's a Dr. Franck Joly who even has used us during facelift acupuncture, where they are sitting under the panel while they're getting the acupuncture for aesthetic reasons, which I find really fascinating as well. And we're used a lot in schools because I feel like as an educator, I over explain and I really go to the complexities of it, because just like in my own history, I need to know why this light works because I wasn't a believer at the beginning. But it's one of those things that it's the easiest thing to incorporate in the treatment room. It's easier than a steamer. You basically turn it on, set it for a certain amount of time, and either just go through a face with something like the handhelds, or you just leave it be. And so as complex as we're making these topics and this discussion, it's one of those things where it really is one of the easiest things to incorporate, especially since it is such a do no harm modality that can help with so many other things that you're doing in the treatment room as well.
Right now, we're finding with the aesthetic market is that doing combination therapies, not just doing one therapy, doing a variety of different things, customizing for that person that you're treating at that day, at that moment. But it's important to know that we're adding more services to our treatment plans and adding more home care, home treatments at home. So what you're doing is perfectly combining what we've learned in all the history and the valid points about light source to our treatments already done. So every point that you've said, it's a benefit to have something that reduces inflammation. So it's so valid to use LED on that for that particular reasons. It really it hits a home run for me, understanding that it's an additional benefit to any of our treatments.
Absolutely. And when it's combined, it's honestly a situation where 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah.
I've seen it being used with different product or these different services where it's almost the benefits of them being used together don't add up if you were to take the two services being used apart.
Well, I need to obviously buy myself a new mask because Anna has now inherited the one I have. So,
I did.
And more people should incorporate more home treatments. It makes so much more sense. Not only are we taking home care home, we're doing home treatments, but incorporating LED in your home treatment makes a huge difference in understanding why you're using it. Now you're able to look and see where the benefits are. You can see it, but now you understand why you're using it and you can see the results.
Yes, and since it is so non-invasive, it is something where consistency is key. It's one of those things where it's fitness for your skin. It's working out. You need to use it over a long period of time to get those long-term, long-lasting results. And so, in our handhelds, we feel very lucky that we've been able to get it to be as consistent as it is, because inside even a 3-inch area on one of those handhelds, there's 72 LEDs all on at the same time, covering multiple areas of attack, if you will, in order to create these sort of benefits.
I love
Attack is
the
the wrong word, but
You know
no,
what?
it's a controlled light therapy,
Yeah.
controlled. And I
Mhm.
think that makes a difference because the sun does have its benefits, but you also have the other side of the free radical
Mhm.
damage. But to have controlled light benefit, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and it's being in this diffuse way. It's so different from laser because we're not cutting, coagulating, ablating, boiling in the case of laser hair removal. That has its place as well, but that's more akin to using light to a chemical peel or microdermabrasion than it is using LED therapy.
I think what's happening if you keep the skin, the energy that you bring into the skin cell is very valid, and you want to be able to keep the skin exercising, like you said. So workout, but the inflammation has always been the point that you had to stop. The fact that when you use LED, you were continuing to deal with the inflammation, so you could do more. You could do more exercising. You could keep the skin more fit, and so it works hand in hand. The theory about it is it is an organ. It is live. It's moving. So we should be consistent and do it a long term. It's a long term kind of idea. And I think that's really makes sense as we simplify the message and saying that we need that. We need to keep the skin in motion and we need to keep the energy of the skin cell at its best.
Even when we're talking about peels, we really talk about
Yeah,
reducing inflammation.
yeah.
And the new advances in peel technology are all about reducing inflammation. So this type of treatment is very important to incorporate in clinic and at home.
Let me ask you
I mean,
also.
I agree.
Okay.
I'm a little biased, but I completely agree.
Well, I was going to say also on your website, you do have, on Lightstim's website, you guys have some celebrities and athletes who have really said how it's changed them. Can you talk about some success stories from using LED therapy?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of all over the map. Another thing, once again, why I like LED is that we're able to just make friends with everyone and every industry. So, I mean, within aesthetics and dermatology, you'll see us being used by people like Dr. Jason Emmer or Shawnee Darden or Kate Somerville inside of her spas and seeing great success. You'll see us in a lot of different wellness facilities as well. Dave Asprey, who founded all the biohacking and bulletproof to what it is today, has always been a huge fan of our bed. In fitness, you'll see us being used by the Phoenix Suns. We have testimonials from people like Chris Paul and Devin Booker, New York Giants with Saquon Barkley. And so it covers all these different grounds. One of my favorite celebrity videos that came out, Courtney Cox has one of our bed, and it was just her lying there and her dog kept jumping up into it while she was trying to do a bed treatment. That's a lot of fun, but it's just showing all these people who are really focused on aging healthily and having better quality of life and getting the most out of their training. All these different facets, they're finding the value in using LED in order to help with that overall wellness, if you will.
Now, are there any contraindications? Like, one of the most common questions we get, is it pregnancy safe? And are there also any skin conditions where you should not use LED light therapy?
Luckily, even through the FDA, we do not have any contraindications. It can be used on all skin types, tones, ethnicity. Once again, a way where it diverts itself from laser in another way as well. But with that being said, there are always precautions to think about. Much like aspirin, it wasn't tested for use in pregnancy. And so it's something where you want to get the okay from a doctor for your own liability. I would say 95% of doctors are okay with it, but you never know if there's something strange going on or if they're on any sort of medication, if it is high risk, where it's something that they are overseeing something else. So it's always good to have caution, even though I did say that it is safe to be used in an oncology setting if you are trained. If you see a suspicious lesion that you do not know what it is, your client doesn't know what it is, you could be saving a life. Don't really do anything over that lesion. That's something where you would want them to go see their doctor. We do not diagnose or treat, once again, even though it hasn't been shown to have any sort of negative effect on those types of cells. We would ask that people act with precaution in a situation like that. We've talked about use withdrawing or irritating ingredients. If someone has light activated migraines, a lot of the times they could be fine, but with the goggles, but just something to be conscious of. Might have someone who's light sensitive enough where the light is something that they might want to steer away from, or might want to use some extra protection, like some cotton rounds under the eyes. I got an Instagram ad recently for something that looked horrifying, which were these contacts for when you want to get IPL on your eyelids. I don't know how much I would have faith in that, but I want to try to see how much light those block at some point. Yeah. And see if that would help that clientele. Some lights may flash. Ours don't. Ours is a continuous wave. But in the case of those that flash, flash, you might want to make sure that the person doesn't have epilepsy. So with LED in general, that may be a precaution that you want to take. With ours, that's not necessary. And if some have an LED that flashes and doesn't, if their system is modular where it gets brighter or dimmer or stuff like that, usually it is still flashing enough to activate epilepsy, even if you can't see it. Like if they have two different modes, one for flashing and one for not. If you were to look at it with a high definition camera, you would still see it flickering a lot of the time. So that's just something to be very conscious of as well. And of course, our dear old friend Accutane. I have not heard of any reactions with Accutane, but I would like to keep it that way. And it does have a 6-month washout within your system. So unless you're really gung-ho and want to talk to their prescribing dermatologist or physician over that and see that or any other light reactive medication, that usually means UV. But once again, we should not be diagnosing or treating. Wait until it's out of their system.
Wonderful. Wow, that is so much information.
I know.
I mean, I need to go home and borrow yours now because
know.
now you've inherited my mask.
I know.
I think I might be seeing you guys in 2 weeks.
Vegas.
Yes.
So there is a good chance that we can just meet up, see what we can do.
Get another mask.
Put that in your hands.
I love it. So real quick, so they speak wavelength. Fran and Metaxia speak wavelength. I speak color. That's how it is with me. But if somebody wants to go into a professional and they say, what should they do ahead of time to their skin to prepare for an LED light therapy treatment? What should they expect there? And is there anything they should do post-treatment?
Nothing. I mean, that's kind of the great thing about LED is that it doesn't affect your daily life at all. It's one of those things that can easily be incorporated in. If they are using one of our devices that you sit under as well, I would say the only thing you need to do to prepare is to relax. And by that, I mean, you are going to be still, you are going to be under your light. So you can't check your phone, you can't check your watch. And this is something a lot of people are not used to anymore.
No.
I know, right? Disconnect, everyone. Just enjoy it. Be in the moment.
So that relaxation factor is a benefit, but it's one that if people are not ready for, then
What a good point.
So therapists should have music in the background to actually be calming and nice and get the phone put away.
I personally, when I go under our Ellipsa, which I like better than the masks out there just because it is a higher power treatment, there are more lights on at the same time and it does cover the full face. I do guided meditations. I listen to something during that time, that 16 minutes where it's breath work or something like that, just because I find it's a wonderful use of that time for me to separate. And I get to do that right before bed. I get to annoy the husband with the red light just beaming on while he's trying to get to sleep. So it's a win-win in a lot of different ways.
How come that reminds me of like the Seinfeld episode with the chicken, the red light? I don't know if you've seen that, but like the chicken restaurant across the street with the red lights, like I can't sleep with that. Yeah, this is fantastic, Richard. I mean, I've learned so much. We appreciate having you on the show and thank you so much. And we can't wait to keep in touch with more of our LED questions.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate being on here. I appreciate what you're doing to try to keep our industry fresh and educated. And I look forward to seeing you all soon in person.
Thank you, Richard. And I'm very happy. I learned a lot more today.
Thank you.
I thought I knew a lot about it, but you taught me even more. I learned even more than before.
And there's more than this. So we can keep this conversation going. I look forward to it.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
A big thank you to Richard for joining us. A lot of great information. I am loving using my LED light therapy mask. It's been a lot of fun. Francine has also kind of, found me as we've talked about in the podcast. So I love it. What do you guys think about what Richard said?
I'm excited that he's given us some really important facts to support, the light therapy and the benefits of it. I was really impressed with the podcast and how he, gave that information out. I was excited to learn more.
I learned even more today. I thought I knew a lot about LED, but Richard was so knowledgeable that I learned even more. And it does show how important it is to know how to control your light source. Just like you have to know how to peel, you have to know what products to use, you have to know how to use the right light source. And I do feel he was able to inform us why my daughter's stealing the mask, but I'm getting a new one very, very soon. So you can go ahead
You
and
get the
keep it.
upgraded one, okay? You get the new one. You get the
Sure.
new fancy one. I did you a favor.
I'm
Well,
going to
I have
take
to.
mine out of the box.
The big one? The
Yeah,
big one?
not the big one, not the big one. But it made me realize, wait a minute, I have the opportunity to do something at home, which I have it. And I bet a lot of people have them and they don't, do them as a home treatment, but I'm going to start.
And it's time to do it. And I think I have to
Yeah,
get one for your sister, Anna, too, because now that she knows you're walking around the
yeah.
house with the mask on and getting skin treatments, and I haven't brought it up to her, I think I'm in trouble.
Yeah, she's going to
So
be
we'll have to
upset.
get 2 of them, yes, and take care of it as soon as possible. I just hope people do remember, as we're talking about different light, especially during the summer, it's time to remind people to use their sunscreens. Sunscreens are so very, very important, and using a good sunscreen with powerful antioxidants and anti-inflammatories really do help take care of the skin as they're protecting, because protection is number one. Mineral sunscreens are what we do believe in very strongly, and we do make sure that the hydration's there, protection's there, and antioxidants and anti-inflammatories.
And I want to remind everyone, it doesn't matter what Fitzpatrick, from 1 to Fitzpatrick 6, everyone needs to wear an SPF to protect their skin. We all have skin, and it doesn't matter the color of the skin. We need to protect that beautiful layer, that epidermis that protects our dermis. So please, 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 all skin types
Yes,
should wear SPF.
100%, 100% true. What's your favorite of the Lira Clinical Skin sunscreens to wear right now?
Mine's the
Ooh.
Elio. Mine's the
Helio
Elio.
drops?
I'm addicted to the Elio. I mean, it's like I have an addiction.
I have a few. Number one, Elio Glow is a big favorite
Yeah.
for me, but I wear BB tint daily, so I wear both, and especially if I'm in the sun. And the last but not least is I love the SPF hydrating, because I do like that dewy look. And I think as we get more mature, what we find is that we need that extra hydration. So all 3.
Yeah, I've been using a little bit more of the tint, the classic tint. I will use the BB every day, but I've also been using the sunscreened SPF tint also, just because I like the little bit of color it leaves. For my kids, though, I really enjoyed the oil-free, and I brought it to the end of our school year celebration, and some of the kids forgot their sunscreen. Some of the parents like, oh, can I use some sunscreen? I'm like, sure, here. It's an oil-free one. And they tried to like, oh, this is so velvety smooth.
Yeah.
They all loved it. Like, can I have some? Can I have some? Can I take a picture? I'm like, sure, no problem. Go for it.
Anna,
So,
I
yes.
wanted to see those pictures. If they're holding the product, say hello.
I should have done that. So I will get
You
on
got
that.
it.
But thank you both so much.
Thank
Amazing episode. A lot of great information. Again, thank you so much to Richard, because we learned so much about LED light therapy. And thank you all for listening to another episode of Skin Depth Convo. For all of us here, I'm Anna Kagarakis, and we'll talk soon.